All right, so we haven't sent a tier list in a little while, ladies and gentlemen. I've been holding off. I've been really wanting to just make sure I gather all the data. We just had some big patches coming in, a bunch of tuning, and I feel confident now. You know, I've been talking to lots of professional players. I've been playing the game tons myself. I've been reaching out to the community, and I have a tier list. We're going to be making a solo shuffle tier list, so we're not going to be diving into, you know, the depths of 3v3, but this is for solo shuffle. Most people in the game right now, they're playing solo shuffle, so I'm going to be making a tier list, going over where everything kind of lands in solo shuffle right now. And I'm not going to be like those other guys. We're not going to be like those other guys who have A+. I'm going to be honest with you guys, the A+, I think is just a coward's way out. So, but what I will do is I'll put tanks. We're going to add a row. Put all the tanks down there. Cool. All right, so we'll start off with the tanks. Put the tanks in here. Pardon me, tank. 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 What else we got here? Tank. Prop Paladin tank, Brewmaster Monk tank. So all the tanks are down there in the tank category. Change the color of that a little bit. Those are completely irrelevant to the tier list. Okay, so like I said, guys, we're going to be doing this tier list in a way where we do not have an A+. So, yeah, and remember, this is specifically for solo shuffle. So I'm going to rank every single spec here. I think I'm going to start off with... Maybe we'll do healers first. Okay. Well, I'm just going to put them where they belong. So first healer we're going to start off with was the Holy Paladin. So we've got a bunch of healer changes. We saw Holy Priest get some buffs. We saw Mistweaver Monks get some changes. Paladin's got some slight nerfs, but I still think that for solo shuffle, Holy Paladin is the best healer in the game. I think the only S tier healer for me is Holy Paladin. It's very good. Has lots of strong lobbies. I think it's very strong. So I'm going to put it up there in S tier right now. The next healer we have on the list is going to be Discipline Priest. So in A tier, I'm going to be putting Discipline Priest. Okay, so we have A tier Discipline Priest. And after we make this tier list, guys, we can go take a look at some of the data as well. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at some of the data and see if it kind of lines up with what I'm saying, or if I've totally missed the plot. The cousin to the Discipline Priest, we'll put Holy Priest. Holy Priest is actually the only healer specialization in Soul Shuffle that doesn't have a 2400 yet. So they've recently buffed MMR, but Holy Priest have still yet to hit that elite. I think Holy Priest is very undertuned. It got some buffs to things that I don't think it really needed buffs. So I'm going to put it down here at C tier. I might even put it at D tier. I think I'm going to put it at D tier for now. I think it's the worst healer. And one of the reasons why it's so bad is because it doesn't have any mitigation. It seems like what's really important right now is having actual damage mitigation, not just throughput. And Holy Priest it heals, but it doesn't heal enough. And in dampening, you just lose with no CC. I'm gonna be a little bit wild here. I think Mistweaver Monk has jumped up a few ranks. I think some of the recent changes to Mistweaver Monks has made it significantly better. In my personal opinion, it's my favorite healer to play, and I found some good success on it. A bunch of Mistweaver Monks are pushing. It's got a ton of extra damage with Crackling Jade Lightning, and Rising Wind Kick and stuff like that. So not only is it just not only does it have good healing, but it also has like an extra bit of little offensive pressure. So we're gonna put Mistweaver Monk at A tier. So I think one of the big things that was holding Presevoker down so much was how good rogues, ferals, and mages and stuff like that were. But I think with a little bit of a meta change and some other classes being stronger, I actually am going to rate Presevoker higher. So I'm going to put it up there in A tier. Personally, I'm going to put Presevoker up in the A tier right now. I think it still packs a great amount of offense. That's good healing, and I think now that we're not seeing as many just like mages and rogues, it's not as bad. Mistweaver Monk still dies in stuns. I mean, if you do find yourself in a matchup where you just die in a stun, you have talents. You can, yeah. All right, now, I don't think that Resto Shaman is bad, but I think Resto Shaman has some lobbies that aren't great. Like overall, Resto Shamans aren't bad, but I think you can be caught in these lobbies where you just don't have the throughput, like specifically healing squishy things like Warlocks can be really annoying on a Resto Shaman. So I'm going to put it a little bit of a tier below. I don't think Shaman's bad. B tier, very respectable. B tier is still like an 8 out of 10 kind of thing. You know what I mean? So like when we're looking at this tier list, guys, at least in the Canadian education system, a B is 80 and above. So that's an 8 out of 10 still, okay? A is 9 out of 10, and S is 10 out of 10. Perfect. And then D is like a 6. C is a 7. Okay. So yeah, Resto Shaman I think is good, and I'm gonna put Resto Druid here at B tier as well. I don't think Resto Druid's that bad. A really good Resto Druid can still you know, perform pretty well in Solo Shuffle. I think it can be frustrating. You can fall behind on healing. I think if you don't know exactly what you're doing, it can be really rough. But a really good Resto Druid I think is still decent. I put it up there with Shaman. I mean, you could maybe make an argument that it's C, but I'm gonna put it at B. Okay, I'll do ranged. This is gonna trigger some of you guys. This is definitely gonna trigger some of you guys, but it's just the way it is, okay? We can look at the data after and see if it supports what I'm saying, or like I said, if I'm crazy. We can just start with the King of the Jungle. Personally, my thoughts are this is probably the best overall DPS spec in Solo Shuffle right now. I'm gonna put BM Hunter at S tier. I think for range DPS, it takes the cake right now. It's quite strong. IMO. Quite strong indeed. BM Hunter is absolutely nasty. 10 out of 10. Now for A tier, this is where things get a little bit crazy. I actually think there's a lot of A tier specializations. I think casters in general, a good caster is quite powerful in Solo Shuffle right now. So let's see. The first one I'm going to put in A tier is going to be Devastation Evoker. I still think it brings a ton of damage. Has, you know, decent CC. I just think overall the kit of a Devastation Evoker is quite strong, so we're going to put it at A tier. Warlock specializations. For Warlocks, I think Demo is a very solid A as well. Demo is a solid A, and I would actually say that Affliction is also A. So in my personal opinion, both Affliction and Demonology right now are still A tier, specifically for Solo Shuffle, up there with Devastation Evoker. And like I said, I think there's a lot of good casters right now. There's a lot of good casters right now. So I think I might run the risk of overcrowding A, but I think it's kind of warranted. All right. Next up, we've got the Elemental Shaman. They did receive some nerfs this week, but I still think they're quite strong in Shuffle. Well-rounded. They do well into casters. Like, things that are good into casters right now, in general, are pretty strong in Shuffle because we're seeing so many of them. I think you could make an argument that Ellie is S tier, but I don't think Ellie's as good as BM. So I'm gonna save the S tier for like the true 10 out of 10 specs. Like, I think it's important because in my opinion, people put too many things in S tier, and I think they get comfy cozy with their A tier. Like, this is gonna be the best tier list, and I think this needs to be the standard from now on, where there's no like it's S, A, B, C, D. That's it. Okay. So, what else do we have here? Another one is Shadow Priest. So I think Shadow Priest is also very strong. So now for the A tier range, we have Dev, Demonology, Affliction, Ellie, Shadow Priest, and the last one I'm going to put here is Frost Mage. So I'll put Frost Mage here as well. Frost Mage is also up there in A tier. I still think it's quite strong. The biggest issue for Frost Mage right now is Shamans, like the little bit of a rise of power for both Elemental Shaman and Enhancement Shaman. I think make it a nuisance, and BM Hunter, but overall Mage is still quite strong. 100% Mage is 100% S Frost Mage. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. If you're sitting there and you think that Frost Mage is S tier in Solo Shuffle, you're actually just flat out wrong. Flat out wrong. So, if you're mad that I put it at A, you don't got a clue. No offense. Okay. Now, I think that is going to do it for all of the A tier. Let me take a quick little glance. Okay, so Balanced Druid is one that I'm on the fence about. In my personal opinion, I do think it's A. But I need to see more data. Like, from the data that I have seen, small sample sizes, I think Balanced Druid is really sleeper right now. And regrettably, I'm going to put it in B tier. But I do think it's like... it's right there. It's right there. It could be an A. I really do think that Boomkin could be an A tier. It has a high first blood rate, so you know, for the average player, it's going to be hard to pull off. But like really good balanced druids, I do think it's very, very close to being A. Let's see what else we got here for B. The next one I'm going to place here for caster DPS is going to be Destruction Warlock. Destruction Warlock. Actually, so I'll say two things. Number one, the reason why I have like both Boomy and Destro in B tier is because they have really high first blood rates. They get trained and die more often than anything else. But we, like I said, really good Destro Warlocks, really good balancers they can perform. But I think for like just a like kind of the normal person, if you're not like the absolute best player, then I think you're gonna struggle to survive sometimes. So I'm gonna put both Balanced Druid and Destro Warlock at B tier. I don't. So this one is kind of hard for me. I think I want to put Marksmanship Hunter in B tier. Marksmanship Hunter feels like it's really fallen off. There's a part of me that feels like it's C tier, but I still think for Solo Shuffle it brings some good stuff. Like it brings CC, it brings CC, it brings a Mortal Strike, which I think is pretty effective. So it's like I kind of want to put it at B. I think I'm gonna put it at B. I don't really feel confident putting it at C. Yeah. I'm also, I'm gonna do something a little bit cray-cray here. I'm going to rate Arcane Mage in B tier 2. Even though Arcane Mage is like one of the least represented range DPS specs, I still feel like it's not bad. It has a win condition of just one-shotting. Like Arcane Mage right now is extremely bursty. You are kind of susceptible to being shut down because you have one school of magic, but you're really bursty, you're really slippery. It's one of the hardest things to kill. So I think Arcane Mage is at least B tier. I do think it's like noticeably worse than Frost overall, but in the right lobby and in the right player, it does really, really well. So I'm gonna put it there. Something has to be in C tier, yes. And I think for C tier, I'm gonna put Fire Mage. And the thing is, I don't even think Fire Mage is that bad, but my biggest problem with Fire Mage is it's really slow. What do you mean by that, Ben? Like the damage is, it has pretty good consistent damage, honestly, but the biggest issue with Fire Mage to me is it's just very slow. You know, you don't really have that massive spike of one-shot damage. It's a lot of just like really slow globals that are kind of being weaved in. So I feel like for me, I'm gonna put Fire Mage at C. I think it might be worse than Arcane. I could be wrong about that. I think you could make an argument that maybe it's a B, but yeah, I'll put it at C tier for now. And that's one I'm iffy about. I'm on the fence about Arcane and Fire, and I'm on the fence about Marks a little bit, but I think this is fine. And then last but certainly not least, we have our melee DPS. I am going to go ahead. I still think the best melee DPS in the game is Feral Druid. So I still think Feral Druid is king of the jungle. If we are going to list like an S tier melee, I still think it's got to be Feral Druid. So I'm going to put Feral Druid at S tier. If I had to rate one caster, one ranged, one melee and one healer, like this is the top of the list for me. So I'm gonna put Feral Druid up at S tier still. As we know, Warriors got a ton of buffs. I think Warriors overall are really solid. One of the problems with Warriors is I still feel like they're really lobby dependent. Like if you get a bad lobby, I actually think one of the biggest problems with Warriors is how good Paladins are. No joke. I think because there's so many Paladins and there's so many viable casters, Warriors get caught in this situation where they're just in Paladin double Wizard lobbies. So like, I think if Paladins were deleted, Warriors could potentially be S tier. But yeah, Paladins just, yeah, they make it so a lot of these casters are extremely viable right now. So I'm going to put both Warrior specializations at A tier, I think. I think Warriors are good. You know what I mean? Like they work well with pretty much everything. The main thing holding them back right now is casters and paladins, but if you don't get like a double caster paladin lobby, you do really, really well. You do really well. Which one's better between Arms and Fury? I don't know about that. I really don't know. They both seem really good. I think both Fury and Arms are really strong. Let's see. Okay. Let's do Demon Hunter. So Demon Hunter, the main problem with Demon Hunter is it kind of just flops. I think actually Demon Hunter has really strong damage, but one of the main issues with it is it just kind of flops. So I've seen some Demon Hunters do well. Truthfully, I've seen some Demon Hunters do really well, but I think it's one of the weaker specializations right now. I think, like, I'm trying to think. I think it actually, I'm going to put it at B, because I still think it's better than Death Knight. Like, if we're going to have any C tier... Okay, let's just get the bandage. Let's rip off the bandage here. I don't know which one I think is worse between Unholy and Frost. Like, Frost still has that factor of, like, kind of just, like, one-shotting, which can maybe work in some lobby. I think it's really lobby-dependent which one of these two is better. But... What do you guys think? Unholy is slightly better than Frost? Do we think Frost is the worst melee in the game? Frost? Both D. Frost is worse. I think overall Frost is worse too. You think Frost is underrated? They need more data. Frost might be underrated when like Zeke plays it or something like that, but I'm gonna put this here. So I'm gonna put this is for me. I'm gonna put Unholy at C tier and I'm gonna put Frost at D tier. I actually think that what they need to do for Frosty K, and I'm not kidding when I say this, I actually think Frosty K would be a very viable, good spec if they gave it Mortal Strike. And I think it needs it. I know you guys might be like, oh, don't homogenize the game, blah, blah, blah. But I swear Frosty K needs Mortal Strike. Like, basically for Frosty K, it's either you have a gimmicky one-shot bullshit, which they've kind of nerfed, or you have Mortal Strike. I think they need that. I don't think they offer the same amount of like team utility that like a Rep Paladin or Enhancement Shaman does. I really think that they need a Mortal Strike. I think it would be sick. Maybe it doesn't have to be like exactly... I don't know what they could do, but having some sort of healing reduction I think would be really, really healthy for Frosty K. And would actually probably bring it up to like a B tier. Okay. Let's continue. We've got a few more specs here. Subtlety Rogue. Subtlety Rogue has, I feel like, fallen off a cliff. Not too long ago, I rated Subtlety Rogue at S tier. I think I'm going to put it down at 8 B tier. I still think like a good sub-rogue. You have win conditions with Shadowy Duel and Smoke Bomb. You have good control, but the damage has been nerfed quite a bit. You don't have the CDR anymore. I'm going to put Subtlety Rogue at B tier. Like a really, really good sub-rogue. It's definitely not going on S tier, that's for sure. Sub-rogue does 2.5 million Avisas. Yeah, but it's hard to pull off. And the better that your opponent, like, I don't know. Sub can have these moments where it looks really OP, but I just don't think overall it's that great right now. So I'm going to put Subtlety Rogue there. Assassination Rogue, I'm thinking kind of is similar, especially with how good Paladins are right now. I think it's in a similar situation where, yeah, it's tough. Assassination Rogue's at B tier. I unironically think the best rogue specialization right now is Outlaw. But do I think Outlaw is as good as these other A tier melee? Like, do we think Outlaw is A? That's the only thing I'm on the fence about right now. Like, I'm not sure. B? I think Outlaw has the potential to be A. I've seen like Waz play it. Of course, that's Waz, but I think I'm gonna put all the rogue specs at B for the time being. All the rogue specs are currently at B for Solo Shuffle for me. It should be about comps. This is Solo Shuffle, yeah. Waz makes rogue look at S tier. He does, yeah, for sure. I know about that. Then we have a few more specs here. We've got Windwalker Monk, Survival Hunter. All right, so far, let's just recap the melee. We've got Feral in S tier, Both warrior specs in A tier. All 3 rogue specs in demon hunter in B tier. Unholy decay at C tier and frost decay at D tier. Let's put Windwalker Monk. I'm gonna put Windwalker Monk. See, Windwalker Monk is one where it's like, I feel like it's better than Demon Hunter, but it's worse than Warrior. So it's kind of an awkward for me. It's awkward for me. Like, I think Windwalker Monk is worse than Warrior. Part of me wants to put it in B tier. I think I'm gonna put Windwalker in B tier. Windwalker is definitely better. Is it? It's like B plus, A minus. I just don't know if I want to put it. I think Windwalker and Demon Hunter are kind of similar right now. And remember, guys, like B is not bad. B is 8. I'm gonna put Windwalker there. And now these last 3 specializations I actually think are a little bit underrated in Solo Shuffle. We'll do Enhancement Shaman. I think with how good. So I'll put a little caveat. Enhancement Shaman's it's hard to pull off. Like you're seeing, you know, Big Dam and Saul, they do really well. But I think a good Enhancement Shaman is easily A tier in the current meta. I think it's easily A tier. I think it brings a shit ton of damage. It basically, to me, an Enhancement Shaman is like a walking Affliction Warlock that just stops everything you do. I think it's really, really strong at the moment. So, like when we're talking about some of the better players in the game, I think Enhancement Shaman is easily A tier at the moment. Really, really good. And I think Ret Paladin's actually in a very similar boat for Solo Shuffle in particular. I think Solo Shuffle, Ret Paladins right now, you have a lot of range DPS. It can be difficult to shut down. Yeah, you have good team utility. You have good damage. I think Ret Paladin is one of those specs that's like very underrated in Solo Shuffle right now. In Solo Shuffle, in particular, I think it's underrated. I think it's actually quite good. And it works well with a lot of the classes. And then last but not least, not as bad as Marks, not as good as BM. I think Survival Hunter is a solid A tier as well. And if you look at this, like we're seeing most specs in the game kind of in that A and B zone, which I think is totally fair. This is kind of what I'm feeling right now. So looking at this tier list, there's only a few I'm not 100% certain on, okay? The only ones I think Balance Druids could be moved up. There's a part of me that feels like one of the warrior specs, depending on the lobby, could be moved up as well, but just with the current meta, I don't think it's a warriors meta because of paladins. If paladins got neutered, then I think it would be. I think that would be really, really good. Okay, so I wanted to also just look while we're waiting here. We can take a look at this. So I asked Drusvar, I asked Lika of Drusvar to do something. So instead of just looking at like the US region and the EU region, what we can do now is actually look at both. So we can combine both regions and look at, let's say 2400 plus. I think 2400 plus is very, very solid, you know? Solid. So we'll see, let's see how this data lines up with what I'm saying. So this is the classes in both regions, Let's see if anything is like totally off. So there's no Holy Priests, Fire Mages are shit. Marks Hunters, yeah, not looking too good. Arcane Mages. I think Balance Druids are gonna go up. Maybe I overrated Dev Evoker. Frosty Caves are trash, yeah, that's confirmed. Cool. Yeah, I think that's fine. Resto Shamans. I think I put them in a good spot at B tier with Resto Druids. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. My healers were spot on in terms of that. 2400 is a pretty small sample size. Is it? Not that small. 2400 in both regions. You're still looking at like 600 players. It's quite a bit. You think it changes a bunch if you go 2100? I don't think it changes that much. You should ask them to remove alts from the stats. The sample size is too small. But you think you're throwing off the data? That's the thing, Big Damn. When you make 800 enhancement shamans, you're going to throw off the data. You can't have your cake and eat it too, man. I think this makes sense. Oh, I didn't rate AUG. I'd probably put AUG at like C or B. If you guys are wondering about AUG, I put it at C or B. But yeah, that's the current tier list, in my personal opinion, for Solo Shuffle. Like, as always, guys, if you think I'm crazy, if you're a BM hunter, I can't wait for the BM hunters to tell me BM hunter's not S tier. Stop trying to get BM hunter nerf Venruki. It's finally viable. Nice. Dude, you know what's hilarious? Let's look at this. One more thing I want to look at before we go. Let's look at the flavor of the month. Let's see it. Where is it? Where's flavor of the month? Why isn't it just popping up? Flavor of the month. Yeah. Weirdly enough, Hunters actually went down since the tuning patch. I guess everyone played it and it kind of... Why did it go down? Oh, all. Paladins had a little bit of a rise too. They were falling off the class tuning, and surprisingly they went up. They're super buggy. The bug fixes. Oh yeah, it was completely broken. But the biggest change in their win rate. AUG evokers, fire mages, dev. Sample size isn't that big for that, but yeah. Anyways, that's the tier list. Enjoy it. Happy Halloween, friends. And now, can I my Q pop, please? It's been 30 minutes. Been 30 frickin' minutes, man.